This video is going to be on terror under Mao, so I will cover why the terror campaigns were launched, how they were conducted, as well as urban terror and rural terror, because they were quite different things. So Mao launched terror campaigns almost immediately after taking control of China in 1949, and they were at their height from 1950 to 1952. Mao launched the campaigns for a number of reasons. First, as the CCP became stronger, they could move against people they considered enemies of the state, consolidating their power. The Korean War, which I will try to make a video on, led to concerns that the US may invade China, and Mao felt that the CCP government was vulnerable. Terror would stop opponents of the CCP from launching a counter-revolution or aiding a US invasion. Mao needed to strengthen the CCP's power in the southern territories that it had won in the last years of the Civil War, so terror was used to eliminate remaining Kuomintang supporters in those regions. Resistance to land reform led to the deaths of around 3,000 CCP officials in 1950, so terror was used to implement the policy and help redistribute land to the peasants. Mao authorised the wave of terror in February 1951, when he issued a decree entitled Regulations Regarding the Punishment of Counter-Revolutionaries, which allowed the CCP's security services to persecute a wide range of potential enemies all across China. People were labelled part of the quote-unquote good classes, revolutionary soldiers, poor peasants, industrial workers, etc., or the apparent bad classes, landlords, capitalists, rich peasants, and criminals, referred to as bad elements by Mao. These labels were simplified into black and red, enemies and friends of the state respectively. The supposed enemies were those targeted by the terror campaign. Urban terror was focused on intellectuals, property owners, and government officials who had worked with the Kuomintang. It was designed to be very public. Large meetings were held where people were accused of being counter-revolutionaries and expected to make humiliating confessions. Many were also sentenced to death. Urban workers were encouraged to hunt down former GMD members and bring them to mass meetings, which are often broadcast on radio. Around 2% of the urban population were targeted in 1951. The public nature of the terror ensured that people were too scared to rebel, and hundreds of thousands committed suicide as a result of the campaign. Terror in the countryside was mainly used to attack religious leaders and speed up land reform, so it links a lot to my first video on agricultural reform. Land reform committees, set up in 1950, were quote-unquote purified by expelling wealthy peasants and putting poorer peasants in charge. Landlords were evicted, beaten, expelled from their villages, and, in many cases, killed by the local community. They were also put on trial, and mass meetings were organised where peasants were encouraged to speak bitterness against the landlords, essentially reminding them of their crimes. As a result of the rural terror, around 1 million landlords were killed. The terror was popular among the poor peasants who made up around 70% of China's population, as it allowed them to take land and also resulted in them paying less tax.